Hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of Comic Fever. I am your host, the Dynamite Crip, and today I've decided to do my reviews on the Bento Box graphic novels. Uh, the theme was the little guys, and I thought, what a better way to start with uh, the little guy of little guys, the most recent Marvel cinematic adventure that just came out, Ant-Man. And now, as I mentioned, he's from Marvel, which is, I guess you could say, kind of a little of two things. It's a cinematic universe, and it's also a comic book universe. Um, but anyway, this graphic novel was pretty good. Um, it is a totally new Hank Pym. I will confess that I didn't read much on the original Hank Pym, but I feel like they did take some liberties. The little that I've read about the original Hank Pym, uh, he was already a um, fixed player. He was already an inventor, whereas in this he's pretty much a novice inventor, and he's not really looking to make the world a better place as he is, so much as he is looking to make a quick buck. And how he does this is with the invention of this. Um, the story opens up with him at Van Dyne's in Van Dyne Industries, and he is trying to sell to the board of directors his latest invention. And this invention uh, makes it so that man can speak to ants. And he is selling it off as a pest control product. So he brings it to these chairmen, and he gets the boot, pretty much, and says, basically come back when you have a better invention. So he goes home, and he um, goes home, and he's sitting around the house, and he gets a knock on his door, and it turns out to be his landlord. His landlord threatens him, says, if he doesn't come up with money, he's going to be tossed out, and yada yada. So this kind of sends him downward. But then he's like just sitting around, talking to himself, when all of a sudden he starts hearing these voices. And he stops talking so that he can realize that it's not his voice that he hears, but yet another one. So he listens to these voices, and it turns out that through the mic in his helmet, used to talk to ants are trying to communicate with him. They end up telling him about their issue and how they need him to help and how they've been watching him, and with these inventions and whatnot, and uh, they need him most of all to help them figure things out. So that's all well and good, and um, so he uses the belt that he made, and he shrinks down to ant size, goes to the ant colony, and drives out the invaders that the ants are talking about. But while he's in the ant invaders spaceship, he happens upon the suit that he's wearing, and this suit just happens to belong to one of the invaders. So their suit ends up becoming his armor, and he dubs himself the Ant-Man. That's the first story. The rest of it is pretty much just him in different uh, scenarios. For instance, uh, he is some stories from Marvel Avengers Superheroes 2008, number 6 and number 10. Marvel Universe Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes 2012, number 17. And materials from Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes 2010, number 2. And Superheroes number 19, 2010. Um, but it's weird because I know graphic novels are supposed to be condensed versions, but I felt like this was like super condensed to the point where you were there at his birth and you were there at his death, so to speak. He doesn't die, but he does end up passing it on, and yet he's still a young man, and that's the thing that got me. At least with Tank Pym, we got like a few years, whereas with this guy, is we got like 4 short stories. And then all of a sudden we get a new Ant-Man. That's Ant-Man. Uh, Next up, from the people over at IDW, James Patterson, Witch and Wizard, Battle for Shadowlands. Interesting story. Uh, I think it's a bit of a letdown because it. Well, look at it this way. There's a thing in it called the New Order. Now, most places that I've seen that talk about orders or anything, they always talk about New World Orders. But this is just a new order. Um, anyway, in this new order, there's the guys who, there's the guys who are trying to take over. And then there's a group of witches and wizards who are trying to figure out what they're trying to do, what this new order is all about. And what they find is that this new order wants to take over even more than just the natural realm. They want to take over what's known as the Shadowlands. Now, the Shadowlands is supposedly where you go when you die. Now, I don't understand how it's important because they really don't do a very good job, I feel, of explaining anything, really. you don't get a sense of, okay, well, this is what happens when they die in this, new world, in this Shadowlands. What happens afterwards? It doesn't explain. I guess you just go poof. Uh, but they basically want to take over the Shadowlands, and the witches and wizards try and stop them. Uh, Good book, but I can't recommend it. Project Superpowers. I can really only describe this in one word. Watchmen. Because it has a real Watchmen-esque type feel to it. It is almost like, except in this one, it's the sidekicks are trying to help the hero. The heroes have been trapped inside something called Pandora's Urn, and they've opened this up, and they've tried to get the heroes out. And some have lost their mind to a certain degree. Well, one in particular lost his mind completely. And he is, the only way I can describe him, and hopefully you get this reference, is he's the Ozymandias of the group. He's the one that's going to do this ultimate evil, but it's going to be for the ultimate good. And that sort of thing. But he is also, he's not even a real threat, though. He's kind of the puppet being used by, like, a bigger government conspiracy type deal. Um, I think um, I'll save those thoughts till the end. What I was about to say. Alright. Divinity. Okay. What? Okay. This book was done by Valiant. Uh, and it. Okay, it's the 1950s. Wait, no, it's the 1980s. This book kind of goes all over the place. But the main plot that I understood about it was it centers on the Cold War and the race to space. And it it centers around a man named Abram Davies, and he is an astronaut who has been purposely groomed for this mission. Except in this Russia, it's about Russia and the race to space, but they're both not racing to the moon. What's happening is um, Russia is racing to what only can be described as the outer limits of space. Um, they want to go beyond. everything and see if there's anything out there. So he goes and he's on this mission, but as he goes, his mind starts playing tricks on him, basically. And this is where it kind of bounces around because one minute he's almost like one minute he's himself, next minute he's a godlike being, uh, you know, and he has these abilities to make things happen, and um, it is a strange book. If you like strange books, I do recommend it. If you like uh, books that you really have to think about it, and I gotta be completely honest, I think I have to read it a couple more times to get the gist of what is going on. But I think after I read it, maybe I'll get it. Finally, the Afterlife. Brought to us by the Oni Press. Um, this one was good. This one was really good. Uh, Actually, to be honest, this one was my favorite of them all. Because it, um, the only reference I can think of, hopefully you people get this, but it was Joe versus the volcano. And what I mean by that is, in the beginning, you meet this man, and he has a very humdrum life. He's just going about his day. But then one day and the same events play over and over again, except one particular day, he decides that an event he's going to change. So he sees this woman who drops her handkerchief every time she leaves the train, and he starts to run after her. Well, next thing you know, he's trying to get off the bus, and the bus driver is yelling at him that no one gets off. This is not your stop, so no, you're not getting off. Which I don't know if bus drivers can actually do that, but this bus driver gave him a bit of an argument, and he's like, no, you're not getting off. And he's like, no, but I gotta leave. I gotta find that woman. So he gets the zap, and then all of a sudden he's out of the bus. And he's chasing after this woman. Well, as he's running after this woman, he ends up touching her. And all of a sudden, he sees a very horrific scene. And somehow, it's a scene where this woman ends up losing her baby. And somehow he manages to make it so she gets the baby back. But then the story gets interesting, because there's a certain order to things. And the way this guy is going about things, he's putting things out of whack. And there's an office that is between worlds, and I mean literally. it monitors people, but it's not exactly heaven, and it's not hell. It's kind of the in-between worlds, um, monitoring. And it could actually make deals with both heaven and hell. Uh, but anyway, story goes on, and he ends up running into Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway is trying to help him find his way through this afterlife, or as this says, called the life after. And he finds out that the land he he starts wondering where he is because everything is different, and he ends up finding out that he's in purgatory. And the reason why he's in purgatory is because he supposedly killed himself, and that's where all suicides go. So, um, is it a thinking man's book? Yes, but it does put an interesting twist on the life after, or the afterlife, if you will. In that it doesn't send suicide straight to hell. It talks about, them going into purgatory, and some even uh, having to relive what they did over and over again. Like jumpers, uh, they jump, and it's a loop. They jump and then they find themselves back on, the ledge of a building or the ledge of a bridge or something like that. Um, and because of the things that the guy in this book, the main character, could do, um, both him and Hal want him dead. Want to erase him, basically. It is a good book. I would highly recommend this book. It's by Oni Press, and it's called The Life After. Now, my story, on the whole, uh, each one did do its job, I guess, of, telling stories about the little guy prevailing. Uh, Not this one so much, but still, this one was very interesting. Divinity here was pretty interesting. Uh, Nonetheless, even though I don't feel it kept with the theme of things, it still did what it set out to do. Anyway, this has been my uh, review of all the books from my bento box. Thank you, and enjoy life.